and welcome to the Council on Foreign Relations on this rainy New York afternoon. I'm Richard Haass, President of the Council, and we are truly honored today to welcome President Moon Jae-in, President of the Republic of Korea. And we're doing this here at the Council on Foreign Relations with two of our partner organizations, two of our sister organizations, the Asia Society and the Korea Society. And I thank the President of Korea for already managing to bring us all together. Let me just give 1 minute of setting. We meet today one day after President Moon met with President Trump here in New York. And the reports were that they endorsed the idea of a second summit with the leadership of North Korea, second U.S.-North Korean summit. And this comes just days after President Moon's most recent trip to Pyongyang. And somewhat further afield, we're about 3 months, give or take, since the Singapore summit. So a lot has happened, but at the same time, many questions remain regarding commitments made and next steps. So here is how we're going to address these issues this afternoon. First, I'm going to ask Kevin Rudd, who's president of the Asia Society's Policy Institute, and as you all know, former Prime Minister of Australia, increasingly one of many. Cheap shot. Kevin's going to make some brief remarks, and then he's going to be followed by Tom Hubbard, who chairs the Korea Society, and Tom served with great distinction as the U.S. Ambassador in Seoul. President Moon will then give formal remarks for 15 minutes with simultaneous translation. So unless you're fluent, I recommend that you use headphones at that point, after which the President and I are going to have a relatively brief conversation, then we'll open up to questions with our members, and for that part, you don't need the headphones because we'll do that with consecutive translation. So with that, again, I want to welcome the President and turn the microphone over to Kevin Rudd.
Thank you to Richard Haass, the eternal President of the CFR. For whom there are no term limits. But Mr. President, the remark about Australian Prime Ministers, there have been too many, and it's been too rapid. The only advantage is that it should be my turn again soon. Mr. President, you are a welcome guest here in New York and in America. And it's not just because you're president of a truly beautiful country, which I've had the privilege to visit so many times over the years, but this remarkable Korean democracy, which has produced a vibrant political life in your country and an extraordinarily creative economy. And this has been nothing short of the great Korean miracle. And for those of us who have seen it up close, personal with our eyes, it gives us a natural sense of affection for what you have achieved in the extraordinary period since 1953. So for those reasons alone, Mr. President, as the President of the Republic of Korea, you're a welcome guest. But there's a further reason as well, and that's because of your own remarkable diplomacy. This has been an extraordinary year in inter-Korean relations. And the principal dynamic in that, Mr. President, has been yourself. You've taken risks. Those of us who have been in national political life know that when we choose to take risks, our colleagues will say to us, is that entirely wise? It could go wrong. It could go radically wrong. Or even worse, in the British system, they will say something to you like, how courageous, Prime Minister. And that usually means you're in for real trouble. But, Mr. President, what I'd commend you for is for seizing the opportunity and for going out there and changing reality. And of course, there's a long way to go, but you have changed the dynamic. 2 or 3 very quick points. The first is just simply to congratulate you on finally bringing about peace in our time in trade relations with the United States. Well done. Many other governments around the world are envious of you at present. I won't name them. But this is good, and it's good for the cause of free trade in the region and around the world. The second point is simply to congratulate you on the most recent visit. As someone who knows a little bit of the history of your country, I'm an Asianist by training, and we've studied the history of the three Korean kingdoms when I was at university. The sight of you and Kim Jong-un on Mount Paektu, for me, was a deeply moving sight. This was extraordinary, knowing something of the history and significance of this particular place in the long civilizational history of Korea. And finally, Mr. President, in my allocated 2 minutes from the CFR President for Life, Richard Haas, is simply an observation as we embark upon a difficult journey ahead. What we see, of course, is this great period of rapprochement between North and South, engineered by the chemistry and the policy of your own visit. And secondly, we still look with sobriety at the absence so far of substantive moves by the North on the denuclearization front. The absence, for example, of an inventory of nuclear weapons and what they hold. And therefore point to the future with some concern about will this see a divergence over time as the two Koreas become closer, a divergence between the Republic of Korea and the United States and America's allies in the region. But that is a long way into the future, and I'm sure these concerns you are acutely alert to in the negotiation of your diplomacy with the North. I conclude where I began, Mr. President. You are such a welcome guest here in the United States of America. And I say that formally, not just on behalf of the Asia Society and the Asia Society Policy Institute, but as a fully resident foreign barbarian here in the United States. Welcome, President Moon.
President. Madam Kim, as chairman of the premier American institution devoted exclusively to the promotion of relations between the United States and Korea, I am truly pleased to join the Council on Foreign Relations and the Asia Society in welcoming both of you here to New York. Mr. President, your time in office has been short, still less than a year and a half, I believe, but your accomplishments have indeed been impressive. Many of us have probably already forgotten that you took office at a time of deep domestic challenge in Korea. We all watched with admiration as you led your nation past the trauma of impeachment to restore confidence in the democratic process in one of the most vibrant democracies in the world. Your diplomatic accomplishments are even more impressive. Your diplomacy vis-a-vis North Korea has created new opportunities to reduce tensions and build peace on a Korean peninsula that will someday be free of the nuclear threat. This time last year, we were watching the North Koreans carry out increasingly threatening nuclear and missile tests, and we were worried about imminent war on the peninsula. That we are now talking about how best to pursue our common interests through high-level dialogue that you have met 3 times with the North Korean leader, and our President Trump is already talking about a second summit with the North Korean leader. This is all a direct result of your courageous willingness to engage your North Korean counterpart in serious discussions. And you also demonstrated your commitment to U.S.-Korea relations, to our alliance, in many other ways, including your willingness to negotiate improvements to the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement aimed at giving U.S. products greater access in the Korean market. the meeting you had yesterday with President Trump and your signing ceremony was very encouraging to all of us. And finally, like Mr. Rudd, as a friend of Korea, I was deeply moved at the sight of leaders of South and North Korea standing together with their wives at the top of Mount Paektu last week. We all realize that we have a long way to go before we will have true peace on a unified Korean peninsula. But that dramatic photo was a hopeful sign of what may someday be possible. As friends and allies, the U.S. and the Republic of Korea must stand together to pursue reconciliation based on elimination of the nuclear threat and the betterment of the lives of all of the people in Korea, particularly in North Korea. And the Korea Society stands ready to assist in this process in any way possible. Mr. President, we're all looking forward to your speech this afternoon.
이거 하셔야 되는데.
Honorable the President Richard Haas, Chairman Thomas Hubbard, President Josette Schurand, distinguished guests, I'm delighted to meet you all. I'm grateful to these three leading organizations in international relations for hosting and inviting me to this event. These three institutions serve as a link between the United States, Asia, and Korea. In particular, I'm always thankful to them for their profound interest in and affection for the issues related to the Korean Peninsula. It is very meaningful for me to be able to share their outlook on the rapidly changing developments surrounding the Korean Peninsula with the most prominent experts from Asia and Korea and to converse with them about peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. Around this time last year, when I attended the United Nations General Assembly for the first time, tensions over the Korean Peninsula reached their peak. North Korea went ahead and carried out 6 nuclear tests, and the UN Security Council adopted its toughest ever sanctions resolution. Dark clouds of war cast a shadow over the Korean Peninsula, and there was a war of the words at the UN General Assembly. Under such circumstances, I appeal to North Korea and the international community to resolve problems through dialogue. I urge the North to give up its nuclear program and embark on the path toward peace. I ask for the international community's support and engagement to ensure that the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympic Winter Games would become the Olympics of peace. However, many people did not believe that it would become reality. To many, it may have sounded like an unrealistic dream. 1 year on, something miraculous is taking place on the Korean Peninsula. The prelude to peace was the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics held in February this year. North Korea sent its delegation and athletes to Pyeongchang. On April 27th, I had my first summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un in Panmunjom. We adopted the Panmunjom Declaration that aims to achieve complete denuclearization and establish a permanent peace regime on the Korean Peninsula. In June, the historic U.S.-North Korea summit took place for the first time in the history of the 70-year-long hostile relations. This great decision was born from a combination of mutual trust and respect from the leaders of the United States and North Korea. North Korea demonstrated its sincerity by dismantling the nuclear test site, returning the remains of the fallen U.S. soldiers, and choosing not to display the intimidated long-range missile during the military parade that marked the Foundation Day on September 9th. And last week, I was in Pyongyang. I had my third Inter-Korean summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un and signed the Pyongyang Joint Declaration together with Chairman Kim. Chairman Kim personally pledged in public that he would make the Korean Peninsula a land of peace, free from nuclear weapons and threats. He also expressed the hope of completing denuclearization as soon as possible to focus on economic development. North Korea has refrained from nuclear and missile provocations since last November. Under the watchful eyes of the international community, it also dismantled a nuclear test site in Punggye-ri. Last week, in order to speed up the denuclearization process, North Korea made a clear commitment to first permanently dismantle the missile engine test site and the launch platform in Dongchang-ri under the observation of experts from the relevant countries. Moreover, in accordance with the spirit of the U.S.-North Korea summit, North Korea expressed its willingness to take additional denuclearization measures, including permanent dismantlement of the nuclear facilities in Yongbyon, as the U.S. takes corresponding measures. This means that North Korea will pursue a verifiable and irreversible denuclearization. To expedite the denuclearization process, Chairman Kim is hoping for a visit to North Korea by the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the second U.S.-North Korea summit to be held at the earliest possible date. Distinguished guests, actions are being taken to ease tensions and promote exchange and cooperation between the two Koreas as well. 2 weeks ago, the Inter-Korean Joint Liaison Office was opened in Kaesong, North Korea. We now have an official channel that allows year-round 24-hour communication between the two Koreas. In August, reunions of the separated families were held. Unified teams made up of South and North Korean athletes competed in a number of events in the Jakarta Palembang 2018 Asian Games, as they've done at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games and won the gold medal in one of the competitions for the first time in the Asian Games. The most important accomplishment is the agreement in the military domain included annexed to the Pyeongchang Joint Declaration. The two Koreas agreed to a mutual cessation of hostilities on the entire Korean peninsula. This is akin to a declaration to end the Korean War, as it substantially eliminates the danger of war. Efforts will be made to demilitarize the heavily fortified demilitarized zone and joint security area and transform them into a symbol of peace. These are important strides towards realization of a Korean peninsula free from war. The declaration to end the Korean War that the two Koreas are pursuing is a step that must be taken if we are to move toward a peace regime. It is also necessary for expediting North Korea's denuclearization measures. There are concerns in some quarters that the end of a declaration may affect the status of the UN command or the United States forces in Korea. These are not simply true. The declaration is a political statement made on the journey towards a peace treaty, and therefore the existing armistice will remain in place until such a peace treaty is signed. As for the stationing of the USFK, this is simply a matter for the Iraq-US alliance to decide, regardless of a declaration to end the Korean War or the signing of the peace treaty. Chairman Kim also agrees with this concept of an end-of-war declaration. These developments will allow the two Koreas, as well as the neighboring countries, to be freed from the fear of war that gripped them just a year ago. None of this would have been possible without the bold decision made by President Trump and the consistent support of the international community, including China, Japan, and Russia.
Yesterday, President Trump and I had candid discussions on all of these matters. We share the view that a swift implementation of the Sentosa Agreement, Panmunjom Declarations, and Pyongyang Joint Declaration is of paramount importance. President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un trust each other. The denuclearization talks between the United States and North Korea that had been stalled will resume in earnest. South Korea and the United States have responded positively to the actions taken by North Korea. Our two countries stopped large-scale joint military exercise involving the deployment of the strategic assets. I expect that there will be significant progress in denuclearizations if the leaders of North Korea and the United States sit down together again. Distinguished guests, cornerstone for peace on the Korean Peninsula is the ROK-US alliance. Forged in blood, the ROK-US alliance has become stronger and broader over the past 70 years. Had it not been for the alliance, it would have been difficult, if not impossible, for the Republic of Korea to simultaneously achieve both democratization and economic development in just half a century. Camp Humphrey in Pyeongtaek, where the recently relocated headquarters of the USFK reside, symbolizes the steadfastness of the ROK-US alliance. It's actually the largest one of the U.S. overseas military base, boasting unmatched facility, and as a joint base for the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, as well as an operational hub, it has unrivaled operational capabilities. President Trump himself gave it a thumbs up during our joint visit there last year. Initially forged as a military alliance, the ROK-US alliance has continued to expand, moving beyond an economic alliance toward a global partnership. The ROK-US FTA has enabled a dramatic expansion in exchanges and economic cooperation between two countries. As an agreement between the world's largest and the 11th largest economy, the FTA is a culmination of the robust alliance and is serving as a catalyst for global free trade. Korea was able to foster greater partnership with the United States, which has the world's largest pool of capital and technological prowess, while the U.S. obtained the bridgehead in East Asia. Yesterday, the two countries signed amendment to the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. With the amendment, I expect that people of our two countries will be able to enjoy gains from mutually beneficial trade. The U.S.-Korea will also work together on various issues facing the international community, such as terrorism, violent extremism, environment, health, famine, and refugee crisis. President Trump told me that Korea and the U.S. are not mere allies, but great allies. Freedom and democracy will last forever. Our alliance forged in blood, shed in wartime, will end the war without fail and lead us to peace and prosperity. Our alliance is already great. However, I believe that our alliance will become even greater through the establishment of peace on the Korean Peninsula. Distinguished guest, peace on the Korean Peninsula will not only contribute to regional security, but also bring shared prosperity to the peninsula and Northeast Asia. When peace is established on the Korean Peninsula through complete denuclearization, South and North Korea will pursue economic cooperation in earnest. An inter-Korean economic community will lead to economic cooperation in Northeast Asia. When an appropriate environment is created, Kaesong Industrial Complex and Mountain Kumgang Tourism Project can be resumed. There are also plans to develop a West Coast Joint Specialized Economic Zone and an East Coast Joint Special Tourism Zone. This will give new growth opportunities for American and Korean companies. In my National Liberation Day speech on August 15th, I proposed creations on East Asian Railroad Community, which encompasses 6 Northeast Asian countries and the U.S. At the Eastern Economic Forum in Russia last year, we also proposed a gigantic Northeast Asian Supergrid initiative to connect Russia's Energy Super Ring initiative with wind power and solar photovoltaic power from Gobi Desert in Mongolia. The East Asian Railroad Community will go beyond the energy and economic communities and become the foundation upon which the multilateral peace and security system will be developed. Peace will guide the economy, and in return, economic prosperity will further protect the peace. The participations of the U.S. in these endeavors will accelerate the development of Northeast Asian regions and become a great driving force behind the stabilization in region. I would like to take this opportunity to urge the active participations of the U.S., distinguished guests, esteemed experts in international relations. The people in South and North are no strangers to each other. We had lived together for 5,000 years. We share the same bloodline, history, language, and culture. We are like siblings separated temporarily. We suffered through war and ideological conflict, but we have never forgotten that we are one. We aspire for a peaceful Korean Peninsula free from the threat of war. The fervent desire of the 80 million Koreans and support from the international community are creating the miracle of peace on the Korean Peninsula today. Together with President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un, I will take bold steps toward a new future with the visions of peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. I have ascertained the sincere determinations and unwavering trust of President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un on numerous occasions. I am confident that we will accomplish this feat together without fail. I ask for your generous support and encouragement on the way toward peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and the new future. Thank you.
Questions? Is it on here? No, the ones just to call on.
마이크는 필요 없어?
Well, Mr. President, again, welcome and thank you, and congratulations on all you have done to change the conversation and the dynamic in your part of the world.
대통령님 다시 한번 환영드리고 또 감사의 말씀을 올립니다. 그리고 다시 한번 그간 한반도에서 그간의 역학관계의 변화를 가져오신 것에 대해서 축하의 말씀을 드립니다.
And as I said before, I will just ask a few questions, sir, and then we will turn to our members and guests.
그리고 제가 미리 말씀드렸지만 제가 먼저 몇 가지 질문을 드리고 또 청중들로부터 질문을 받겠습니다.
You spoke about the importance of moving from an armistice agreement to a formal treaty of peace. What conditions or steps would North Korea actually have to take rather than commit to in order for that to happen?
대통령님께서 정전 체제를 또 평화 체제로 이렇게 전환하는 것의 중요성에 대해서 말씀을 하셨는데 이렇게 정전 체제를 전환을 하는 데 있어서 어떤 조건이 필요한지 또 어떠한 조치를 북한이 취해 나가야 한다고 보십니까?
북한은 지속적으로 국제사회에 약속한 바와 같이 완전한 비핵화 조치를 취해 나가야 합니다. 그러나 북한이 비핵화 조치를 계속해서 취해 나가기 위해서는 미국과 국제사회가 북한에 대한 적대관계를 종식하고 또 북한의 안전을 보장해 주는 것이 필요하다고 생각합니다. 그러기 위해서 필요한 것이 정전체제에서 평화체제로 전환하는 것입니다. 아마도 평화협정은 완전한 비핵화의 마지막 단계에서 체결할 수 있게 될 것입니다. 그러기 위해서 먼저 필요한 것이 종전선언입니다. 종전선언을 통해서 북한과의 적대관계를 종식하겠다는 정치적 선언을 하고 그에 따라 북한이 비핵화 조치를 계속해 나간다면 언젠가부터 평화협정을 위한 평화협상을 시작할 수 있게 될 것입니다.
Well, North Korea, as they have continuously promised to the international community, they need to embark on the road to complete denuclearization. However, for North Korea to actually embark on this path, the United States and the international community must end the hostile relations, and also they need to provide security guarantees to the North Korean regime. For this, I mean the transformation from the armistice into a peace treaty is needed, and a peace treaty will be actually possible at the last stage of complete denuclearization. At this stage first, as a first step, we will need to have the end of war declaration. Through this kind of declaration, because this is basically a political statement that announces the end of hostile relations, this will lead to more denuclearization measures from North Korea, and by then we will be able to begin the negotiations to sign a peace treaty.
Do you think that North Korea is prepared to significantly reduce the non-nuclear or conventional military threat, their artillery and other systems posed to your country?
대통령님께서는 북한이 그 핵을 제외한 다른 재래식 무기라든지 이러한 위협을 크게 감축할 준비가 되어 있다고 보십니까?
그렇습니다. 우선 북한과의 군사적 긴장을 완화하는 그 노력은 두 가지 트랩으로 이루어져야 한다고 생각합니다. 하나는 비핵화입니다. 비핵화는 당연히 북한과 미국 사이에 그 프로세스가 논의되어 나가야 합니다. 또 하나는 재래식 무기로 인한 군사적 긴장을 완화하는 것인데 그것은 남북 간에 협의할 문제라고 생각합니다. 이번에 평양선언에서 남북 간에는 초보적 조치의 군사적 긴장 완화 조치가 이루어졌습니다. 그것이 제대로 이행되고 난다면 다음에는 우리 수도 서울을 겨냥하고 있는 북한의 장사정포 그리고 또 그에 대응한 우리 남한의 무기 이와 같은 또 보다 위협적인 그 무기들과 병력을 감축하는 그런 단계로 나아갈 수 있을 것이라고 믿습니다.
First of all, in order to diffuse military tension with North Korea, this needs to be done in a dual track. The first track would be denuclearization, and this is, of course, a process between the United States and North Korea. So the discussions between these two parties are needed. The second track would be threat reduction in regards to conventional weapons, and this track needs to be discussed between the two Koreas. Last week in Pyongyang, we reached an agreement with North Korea regarding the preliminary steps to diffuse military tension. If we could implement these measures in a proper way, then we will be able to remove the North Korean long-range artilleries that are targeting Seoul. And as for South Korea, we can also eliminate some weapons in kind. And also, this means that we will be able to remove more threatening weapons against each other, as well as thinking about the reduction of our forces.
If the North Koreans were to do many of the things they have said they would do, it would represent a fundamental change in their policy. What do you think is motivating Kim Jong-un that did not motivate his father and his grandfather? Why do you think it's possible that we could have this substantial a change on the peninsula now?
북한이 지금 공언하고 있는 조치들을 대부분 취하게 된다면 이는 정책적으로 근본적인 변화를 의미하는 것일 것입니다. 대통령님께서는 김정은 위원장이 어떠한 동기에 따라서 어떠한 의도로 이런 과정을 거치고 있다고 보십니까? 이 선대에는 이렇게 하지 않았었는데 과연 어떤 의도로 이런 조치들을 취하고 있는 것으로 보시는지요?
두 가지라고 생각합니다. 하나는 트럼프 대통령께서 아주 그 위대한 그 결단으로 북한이 핵을 포기할 경우 북한의 안전을 보장해 주겠다라고 약속을 한 것입니다. 그래서 북한은 그 완전한 그 비핵화를 통해서 핵을 포기하는 대신 안전을 보장받으면서 이제는 경제 발전에 집중하려는 그런 국가 발전 전략을 취하고 있는 것입니다. 남북 간의 군사적 긴장 완화도 같은 맥락이라고 그렇게 보고 있습니다.
Let me touch upon two things. First of all, I believe that President Trump has made a truly great decision, and he has promised to provide security guarantees to the North Korean regime if it abandons its nuclear weapons. So I believe that North Korea is trying to embark on the complete denuclearization process in return for security guarantees. Afterwards, they would be able to focus on economic development. I believe that this is the national development strategy of North Korea right now. And also, in this vein, the diffusing military tension between the two Koreas is also this same context.
What can you say today to the Americans here that would reassure them about the U.S.-South Korean alliance in the following way? that there is some skepticism. I'm one of the skeptics that North Korea will ever give up its nuclear weapons because of they took the lesson to what happened to Ukraine. What can you say to reassure Americans that there will not be something of a North-South peace agreement that will put American interests, particularly denuclearization and long-range ballistic missiles, to the side?
대통령님께서 오늘 이곳에 자리한 미국 시민들에게 어떻게 한미 동맹의 미래에 대해서 안심하는 그런 말씀을 해주실 수 있을지 궁금합니다. 특별히 미국인들 중에는 북한의 그런 핵 보유 의지, 핵 포기 의지에 대해서 회의론이 많이 있습니다. 특히 저희가 우크라이나의 사례를 참고할 때 더더욱 그렇습니다. 그래서 앞으로 이 문제들이 남북 간의 평화를 보장할 뿐만 아니라 북한이 보유하고 있는 그런 장거리 미사일이라든지 이런 것을 제거하는 데 있어서 어떻게 말씀을 하시겠습니까?
우선은 그동안 북한과 사이에 여러 차례 비핵화 합의가 있었지만 모두 실천에 이르지 못하고 실패한 경험들이 있기 때문에 여전히 북한의 의도에 대해서 불신하는 것은 당연한 일이라고 생각합니다.
First of all, we have had many agreements on denuclearization with North Korea in the past, but unfortunately they had all collapsed. We have this distinct experience, so therefore I think it's only natural that we have plenty of suspicion regarding the true motives of the North Korean regime.
그러나 이번에는 다릅니다. 과거의 합의는 육자회담 등을 통해서 실무적 차원에서 이루어진 합의였고 그 이행 과정에서 이렇게 파탄이 나기 쉬운 그런 합의였습니다. 그러나 이번에는 사상 최초로 미국의 대통령과 북한의 최고 지도자 사이에 사상 최초의 정상회담이 이루어지면서 양 정상이 세계를 향해서 약속을 한 것입니다. 저는 양 정상이 이 세계에 대해서 한 약속을 지키리라고 믿습니다.
However, I believe that this is completely different this time round. In the past, the agreement was mainly reached through working-level negotiations, such as six-party talks, and in the implementation process, it proved to be very fragile and it collapsed eventually. However, this time, for the first time in history, the President of the United States and the Supreme Leader of North Korea met for a summit, and they promised in front of the whole world. So I believe that because of this reason, this promise will be kept.
가장 중요한 것은 싱가포르 성명에서 북한은 핵을 완전히 포기하기로 하고, 그다음에 그 대신 미국은 북한과의 적대 관계를 종식하고 북한의 안전을 보장하면서 북미 관계를 정상화하기로 그렇게 합의했습니다. 이 두 가지는 서로 규환적인 것입니다. 양국이 싱가포르에서 한 합의를 서로 진정성을 가지고 제대로 이행해 나간다면 이번에는 북한의 완전한 비핵화 충분히 가능하다고 생각하고 있고, 이미 북한은 진정성 있는 조치들을 취하고 있습니다. 작년 11월 이후부터는 일체 추가적인 핵실험과 미사일 도발을 하지 않고 있으며 이미 북한에 하나밖에 없는 핵실험장을 폐기를 했습니다. 그리고 이번에 평양선언에서 미사일을 실험하고 발사할 수 있는 미사일 시험장과 발사대를 미국의 참관하에 폐기하겠다고 공약을 했습니다. 이것만 실천만 되더라도 북한은 이제 다시는 핵과 미사일 도발을 할 수 없는, 핵과 미사일을 가지고 미국이나 전 세계를 위협할 수 없는 그런 상태가 되는 것입니다.
the most important aspect is that in Singapore during the summit and through the Sentosa agreement, North Korea promised complete denuclearization, and in return, the United States promised to end hostile relations, provide security guarantees, and work towards normalizing the relations with Pyongyang. And these measures will be done in exchanges. And if the two countries implement these measures in a sincere and genuine way, then I believe that we will be able to achieve complete denuclearization of North Korea this time round. And I can tell you that already North Korea is taking some genuine measures in this regard. Ever since last November, they have refrained from additional nuclear and missile provocations, and they have already permanently dismantled their nuclear test sites. And in Pyongyang last week, through our Pyongyang Joint Declaration, North Korea also promised to permanently dismantle the missile engine test site as well as the launch platform under inspection from American experts. So if these measures are taken and implemented, I believe that this means that North Korea will no longer be able to engage in nuclear and missile provocations that threaten the United States and the international community.
예, 그런 상황 속에서 북한은 이번 평양 회담에서 미국이 북한에 대한 안전을 보장하고 또 북미 관계를 정상화할 것이라는 믿음을 줄 수 있는 상응 조치를 취한다면 영변 핵기지를 비롯해서 계속해서 핵시설들을 폐기하는 그런 추가적인 비핵화 조치들을 계속해서 취해 나가겠다고 약속을 했습니다. 이 프로그램들을 이렇게 설정하고 타임테이블을 설정하는 것이 이번에 제2차 북미 정상회담에서 이루어내야 될 그런 과제라고 생각합니다.
In the midst of it all, during my summit in Pyongyang with Chairman Kim last week, Chairman Kim told me that if the United States will provide security guarantees, and also if they give North Korea trust that it will work towards normalizing relations with Pyongyang, these are actually the corresponding measures that North Korea is asking for, then North Korea would be willing to take additional denuclearization measures, including the permanent dismantlement of the nuclear base in Yongbyon. So I believe that setting a timetable for all these measures is a big task for the upcoming second U.S.-North Korea summit.
제가 강조하고 싶은 것은 이 놀라운 변화가 모두 한미 동맹이라는 그 강력한 힘에 의해서 뒷받침되고 또 진행되고 있다는 것입니다. 그래서 한미 동맹은 앞으로 북한의 완전한 비핵화가 다 이루어지고 평화협정이 체결이 되더라도 나아가서는 한반도가 통일이 되더라도 이 동북아 전체의 어떤 안정과 평화를 위해서 계속해서 이 존속해 나가야 한다고 믿습니다.
So one thing that I would like to emphasize is that all these remarkable changes have been achieved based on our rock-solid ROK-US alliance. And I believe that because of this reason, even after North Korea's denuclearization, and even after the peace treaty is signed, and even after reunification, the ROK-US alliance should remain in place in order to continue to uphold peace and stability in the Northeast Asian region.
Let's have one last question, then we'll open it up. To what extent do you believe Kim Jong-un is prepared to introduce economic and political reform into his country as a necessity, or to what extent do you think he's afraid of introducing reform because it would threaten his rule?
마지막 질문을 드리겠습니다. 대통령님께서는 과연 얼마나 김정은 위원장이 경제 개방 조치라든지 개혁을 북한에 도입할 수 있을 거라고 생각하십니까? 그리고 얼마나 이것이 체제를 위협하지 않는 수준에서 과연 어느 정도까지 할 수 있다고 보시는지요?
김정은 위원장은 작년 11월까지만 해도 핵과 미사일로 도발을 하면서 세계 평화를 위협했기 때문에 아직도 김정은 위원장에 대해서는 세계 많은 사람들이 불신을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 저는 남북 정상회담을 하면서 가급적 김정은 위원장과 많은 시간 직접 대화를 나누기 위해서 노력을 했고 또 한편으로는 회담의 모든 과정을 생중계를 함으로써 김정은 위원장과 제가 만나고 대화하는 모습 또는 김정은 위원장의 사람 됨됨이를 전 세계인들이 직접 볼 수 있도록 그렇게 노력을 했습니다.
Well, up until November last year, Kim Jong-un had been engaging in nuclear and missile provocations, and by doing so, he had been threatening global security. So I can understand why so many people have suspicions regarding Chairman Kim. This is why in the course of having inter-Korean summits, I tried as much as possible to have direct dialogue with Chairman Kim. And also, we made a point of making efforts to broadcast live all these dialogue and the summits through live TV so that the footages of me meeting Chairman Kim could be seen by the whole world so that the people can decide for themselves what kind of personality Chairman Kim is.
그래서 제가 겪어본 바에 의하면 또 뭐 여러분들께서도 TV를 통해서 보셨겠습니다만 김정은은 나이가 젊지만 아직 아주 솔직담백하고 또 연장자들을 이렇게 예우하는 그런 예의도 아주 갖추고 있었습니다. 뿐만 아니라 북한을 경제적으로 발전시켜야겠다라는 그 염원이 아주 강했습니다. 그래서 핵이 아니더라도 북한이 핵을 포기하더라도 미국이 북한의 안정을 제대로 보장해 주면서 북한의 경제 발전을 위해서 지원해 준다는 그런 신뢰를 준다면 북한 김정은은 경제 발전을 위해서 얼마든지 핵을 포기할 수 있는 그런 진정성을 가지고 있다고 나는 믿습니다.
So the Chairman Kim that I experienced, as you may have the same views as well, he is young, but he is also candid and he respects elders. And he seems to have great aspirations to achieve economic development. So even without nuclear weapons, if the United States could provide the trust that they will provide security guarantees and also aid North Korean economic development, then I believe that Chairman Kim is very much prepared to abandon his nuclear program in exchange for economic development.
김정은은 이렇게 말했습니다. 아직도 그 많은 세계인들이 그 북한의 비핵화를 위한 여러 조치에도 불구하고 여전히 북한을 믿지 못하겠다. 또는 속임수다. 또는 시간 벌기용이다. 이렇게 이제 비난하는 것을 잘 알고 있다. 그러나 지금 이 상황 속에서 북한이 속임수를 쓰거나 또는 시간 벌기를 해서 도대체 북한이 얻을 수 있는 것이 뭐가 있겠는가. 만약에 그럴 경우에 미국이 강력하게 보복을 하게 될 텐데 그 보복을 북한이 어떻게 감당할 수 있겠는가. 그러니 이번에야말로 북한의 진정성을 한번 믿어달라. 이렇게 호소를 했습니다.
And this is what Chairman Kim had said to me. He said that he is aware that there are many people across the globe who are saying that they still cannot believe North Korea in spite of all the measures for denuclearization that North Korea has already taken. And many people are saying that Chairman Kim is just trying to deceive people and he's maybe just trying to buy time. However, he was asking in this kind of circumstance, by deceiving people and by just buying time, what exactly would he gain? And if if he was indeed trying to deceive the United States, then he was very clear that he would be facing almighty consequences, a great retaliation from the United States, which North Korea would not be able to withstand. So this is why he is asking for the international community to trust his sincerity.
예, 그의 진정성에 대해서는 나의 주관적인 어떤 판단일 뿐만 아니라 그 김정은을 직접 만나본 폼페이오 장관이나 또는 트럼프 대통령도 그 진정성을 인정하고 있기 때문에 계속해서 북한과 2차 정상회담을 비롯한 이 비핵화 대화를 계속해 나가려는 것이다라고 저는 그렇게 믿고 있습니다.
Well, this regarding Chairman Kim's sincerity, this is not just my subjective assessment, but those who have met him as well, including President Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. This is why the U.S. administration is still trying to have denuclearization dialogue with North Korea in the form of a second U.S.-North Korea summit.
Let's get a first question from Thomas Byrne of the Korea Society.
네, 코리아 소사이어티에서 첫 번째 질문을 드리고자 합니다.
Should I stand up? Right.
Why don't you?
President Moon, in your vision for peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula, infrastructure projects are a prominent feature, but economic history teaches us that prosperity will ultimately hinge on institutional reform. Have North Korean and South Korean officials discussed what role South Korea could play to provide assistance to North Korea for institutional reform? For example, in the financial sector or investment laws and regulation. And related to that, has Kim Jong-un expressed any interest in joining the International Monetary Fund, a move that would be a prerequisite for mobilizing support from the international financial institutions, such as the World Bank and even the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank in Beijing? The transparency required would be a landmark reform, institutional reform, and I think would also serve as a strong positive signal to South Korean and other private sector investors. Thank you.
대통령님의 평화와 번영을 향한 비전에 있어서 인프라 사업들은 굉장히 중요한 부분을 차지하는 것 같습니다. 저희가 경제사적으로 봤을 때도 남한과 과연 북한 사이에 남한이 이제 어떠한 지원을 북한에 제공할 수 있을지 또 어떤 역할을 할 수 있을지에 대해서 어떤 논의가 있었는지 궁금하고 또 특별히 제도적인 부분의 개혁들, 금융 분야라든지 규제 개혁이라든지 등에 있어 어떻게 남한이 도울 수 있는지 궁금합니다. 또한 김정은 위원장이 북한이 IMF에 가입할 의사를 표명했는지 또한 궁금합니다. 아마도 추후에 세계은행이라든지 또 AIIB 등을 통해서 지원을 받기 위해서는 이러한 절차가 필수적일 것이라고 생각이 됩니다. 또한 이는 한국의 또한 다른 그 사기업들에게도 긍정적인 시그널을 보낼 수 있을 것으로 생각합니다.
예, 지금 이 이야기는 북한의 그 실질적인 비핵화가 완료되거나 또는 상당 부분 불가역적으로 진행이 돼서 대북 제재가 해제된다는 것을 전제로 해서 드리는 이야기입니다.
What I'm about to share with you is being shared on the premise that this would be done after complete denuclearization of North Korea or a substantive progress in an irreversible way in terms of denuclearization. This is and by this we will have the sanctions relieved. So I'm talking to you on this premise.
만약에 그런 상황이 된다면 우리 한국은 북한의 그 인프라 구축을 포함해서 북한의 경제 발전을 위해 선도적으로 지원할 용의가 있습니다. 그리고 그것은 단지 북한을 돕는 것에 그치는 것이 아니라 거꾸로 우리 한계에 직면한 우리 한국 경제에도 새로운 활력이 되고 또 새로운 성장 동력이 될 것이라고 믿습니다.
if this is the case, if this is the stage that we're envisioning, then South Korea would indeed be very much willing to play a leading role in providing assistance to North Korea for its economic development in the form of infrastructure development. And this would just not stop at merely helping North Korea, but it will provide a new impetus for the South Korean economy and provide a new growth engine as well.
그러나 한국의 능력만으로 북한의 경제 발전을 돕는 것은 여러 가지 한계가 있기 때문에 나는 국제적으로 북한의 인프라를 지원하는 그런 국제적인 펀드 같은 것이 조성될 필요가 있다 생각하고 또 세계은행이라든지 세계경제포럼이라든지 또는 아시아 개발은행이라든지 여타 국제기구에서 북한을 지원할 필요가 있다고 봅니다. 그리고 그에 대해서 북한 측에서도 아까 질문하신 IMF나 또는 세계은행이라든지 여러 국제기구에 가입함으로써 개방된 경제로 나설 뜻을 북한이 가지고 있다는 것을 확인했다라는 말씀을 드리겠습니다.
However, these kind of endeavors would not be just South Korea would not be able to bear these kind of endeavors on our own, and there are certainly limitations. This is why I believe that there needs to be an establishment of an international fund that will assist North Korea's infrastructure development, and also we will need to mobilize the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, and AIIB, these kind of agencies to provide assistance to North Korea. And I believe that North Korea is very much willing to go through procedures such as accession to IMF or the World Bank in order to achieve this goal.
A question from Danny Russell of the Asia Society.
Mr. President, unity among the 5 major countries involved in dealing with the North Korean problem has always been very important, but it is clear that there are differences of approach emerging among the 5 countries. How do you think we can ensure that those differences don't undermine the focus and the pressure on implementing UN Security Council resolutions and achieving denuclearization?
대통령님, 그 북핵 문제를 해결하는 데 있어서 미국도 한미 그리고 중국, 러시아, 일본 등 5자 간의 화합이 굉장히 늘 중요한 위치를 점했습니다. 하지만 최근에 그 북한을 접근하는 문제에 있어서 이 5자 간의 큰 이견이 노정되는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 그래서 이러한 이견을 어떻게 줄여나가고 또한 이러한 이견들이 우리가 그 북한의 비핵화와 또 계속해서 충실한 제재를 이행하는 데 있어서 이러한 노력들 저해하지 않는 방향으로 이루어질 수 있을지 이에 대한 의견을 여쭙고 싶습니다.
예, 이 북한을 그 둘러싼 5대국들은 이 북한의 비핵화에 대해서 공통된 이해를 가지고 있다고 생각합니다. 이 북한의 완전한 비핵화와 항구적인 평화 구축이라는 우리 한국의 그 대북 그 정책에 대해서 일관되게 지지를 해주었고 또 유엔 안보리를 통한 북한의 북한에 대한 제재에 대해서도 다 함께 동의를 했으며 또 그 제재의 어떤 그 이행에도 성실하게 동참하고 있습니다.
The 5 countries surrounding North Korea, I believe, have a common objective in terms of denuclearization, and they all have expressed a steadfast support towards the ROK's policy of achieving complete denuclearization and permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula. And these 5 countries have also agreed to UN Security Council sanctions vis-à-vis North Korea, and they've also faithfully implemented those sanctions.
예, 지금 동북아는 세계에서 가장 갈등이 심한 지역 가운데 하나인데 동북아의 갈등의 주요 요인은 결국은 남북한의 어떤 군사적 대결과 그로 인한 갈등으로 야기된 것입니다.
right now, the Northeast Asian region is one of the most volatile places in the whole world where conflict is simmering. And one of the reasons that we are in such a conflicted state stems to the military confrontation between the two Koreas.
그래서 남북 간의 갈등이 해소되는 것은 동북아의 안정과 평화에 크게 기여하게 될 것입니다. 이 동북아 지역은 평화 공동체가 될 수도 있고 또는 에너지 공동체가 될 수 있고 나아가서는 다자 평화 안보 체제를 형성할 수도 있다고 봅니다.
So, if we could relieve tension between the two Koreas, I believe that it will immensely contribute to peace and stability in the Northeast Asia region as a whole. And by doing so, I believe that Northeast Asia could become a peace community or an energy community, and we could even form a multilateral peace and security structure.
그 비핵화의 어떤 프로세스에 대해서 다섯 나라 사이에 약간의 의견 차이가 있을 수는 있겠지만 비핵화가 어느 정도 불가역적인 단계에 이르게 되면 나는 5개국이 함께 협력하리라고 믿습니다.
Having said that, I do understand that there could be a difference in views among the five parties regarding the denuclearization process of North Korea. But if we could reach an irreversible stage, then I'm sure that the five parties will be cooperating.
예, 그러기 위해서 제가 제안한 것이 동아시아 철도 공동체입니다. 남북 간의 철도가 연결이 되면 이 철도는 중국의 철도와 또는 러시아 시베리아의 철도가 연결되면서 유럽으로까지 이어질 수 있습니다. 이 철도의 연결은 주변의 나라 모두에게 이익이 됩니다. 그리고 이 철도 공동체는 과거에 유럽의 그 석탄 철강 공동체가 오늘의 이유로 발전한 것처럼 이 동아시아 철도 공동체는 동아시아 에너지 공동체, 동아시아 경제 공동체를 넘어서 아까 말씀드린 다자 평화 안보 체제로 이렇게 발전할 수 있을 것이라는 비전을 저는 가지고 있고 그 비전이 실현될 수 있도록 제가 최선을 다해서 노력해 나갈 것입니다.
For this reason, I have already proposed the formation of an East Asia Railroad community. By this, I mean connecting the railroad between the two Koreas, which should be extended to China and the Russian Siberian railways, and it will eventually reach Europe. And I believe that this initiative will benefit all the countries in question. And this is actually taken a motive from what we saw in Europe in the past, the European Coal and Steel Community, which eventually led to the formation of EU. And by doing so, I believe that we will be able to establish an energy or economic community in Northeast Asia, and which could eventually lead to the multilateral peace and security architecture. And I'm doing my best to realize this vision.
Mr. President, we've run out of time. I apologize to all the people we couldn't get questions from. I know I speak for everyone in the room, even the skeptics, that we wish you only the best in what you are trying to accomplish here. Literally, the whole world is watching, and we wish you well.